Hello, everybody. Happy May 15th, 2025. We are recording episode number 37 of the Daily BLP. Episode 37. We are just rocking and rolling every day a little bit further down the road. Thanks, everybody, for joining and tuning in today. Let's go around the horn and see what we have on the call today. So with us on the show is Manoj from the other side of the world. How are you doing this morning, Manoj?
Nice, Bran. What about you?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Another day in paradise here in Wisconsin. We're supposed to get thunderstorms and tornado-like weather, so we'll see what happens there.
It is too hot.
Yeah. Matt, how are you doing, bud? Good to see you again today.
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into the show. Good little day planned for today. Nothing too crazy, but we've got a couple meetings that we're going to be doing here in the world of Panacea Smart Solutions. One is we're going to be sitting down on a Zoom meeting with a potential client that we've taken a couple weeks to do a little mini audit of their billing processes to really find out if they're going to be a good fit for what we do. So we've got that call today. I'm looking forward to finding out what the team found in that audit. And then I've got an IT discovery meeting this afternoon with a local chiropractor. That should be fun. That was a meeting set up by Bobby G over at Arsenal. So I'm excited for that one. A little good sized network. I think about 12 computers and a server. So that'll be fun. It'll be interesting to find out, what they're struggling with. I think in Bob's notes, he said they're not happy with their current provider. So maybe we can pick up the pieces and move the ball over the end zone. Okay. So, anything new for you coming up today, Matt? You got anything big going on? Anything cooking?
No, nothing really new. Just kind of catching up and kind of getting ahead on things. Heading out to Baltimore tomorrow, so we'll be off tomorrow, heading across the country in the weekend. So, kind of just playing catch up, or not catch up, preparing so I don't have to play catch up when I get back.
That's a great
idea. Just making sure everyone's all good before I head out, so that tomorrow, hopefully, I can kind of just stay off the computer if needed.
Yeah, very cool. Supposed to have good weather this weekend out east? Or?
It was supposed to thunderstorm Friday and Saturday.
Ugh.
Looks like the sun is coming out Friday now, or actually coming out Saturday now. Friday, I think, is a little bit, but I have faith once I step foot in Baltimore, there will be no rain.
The clouds will part, the God rays will appear through, and there will be baseball played. Awesome. That's good.
Yep.
All right. Well, we might end up having to cancel baseball today because it's supposed to start raining, storming right around 5:00, and that's what time our practice starts today. So we might not be doing BP and pitchers catching practice today. We'll see. Maybe, like you said, maybe we'll get out on the field and everything will clear up.
Yep.
All right. So let's move into our second segment. That's a quick segment one, but that's okay. So we're on number 5 of the top 10 2025 SMB technology trends. Today's trend is all about SMBs increasing their focus on integrating business applications, whether that's new things into their stack or taking the different types of business applications they're using now and finding ways to integrate them so that they don't have to spend duplicate and redundant time doing things in each one. So it's kind of interesting. It's the survey that the SMB group did is saying that 62% of those small and medium-sized businesses surveys plan to invest to improve business application integration. Couple little things here. It's showing integrating new solutions with existing ones is the number 2 tech challenge. So that tells me that companies are trying to do new things that they can't do. They're finding solutions, but they want to make sure those solutions integrate with things they've already got, right? And that can be challenging. Matt, have you ever brought anything on from a standpoint of like different types of software and it doesn't play nice in the sandbox with other things you have?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're, with video and things like that too, when you have to make sure like FPSs and all that stuff is squared away. Yeah, there's been so much trial and error for us with just different softwares we use, softwares not having the compatibilities we want, subtitling stuff. So yeah, all the time. And when they don't play nicely with each other, it's no fun at all.
Yeah, for sure. And another point here is it says 2/3 of existing IT budgets are spent on maintaining or upgrading existing systems. So that's a big portion of that. Doesn't leave a whole lot to spend on integrations. And
Yep.
that can definitely be a driver in expenses, going out there and either finding someone that can build the integration or finding a tool that allow two different softwares to integrate.
Yeah, and with us, we've even run into tools where it's like AUP and AU, and they only work with some softwares, and we've wasted money buying a software we thought was compatible with something and it wasn't, but we bought the right software, but it just wasn't the right version compatibility. So that's the thing with softwares too, is it's like there's so many different versions, softwares, what's compatible with what, that can just throw a wrench in everything.
Yeah. Third point here, better compatibility integrations with existing systems is the number 2 reason that solutions get on a short list. So when we're going out there and shopping and making our list, the number 2 biggest reason to kind of make it into the top categories of being purchased is that ability to be compatible or integrate with. Last one here, ease of integration with existing systems is the number 3 metric to gauge how well a solution works. So, for sure, if every year we're looking at how much money do we have to spend on making sure things work, integrating is definitely a big deal. I find that a lot with our clients that are in the healthcare industry. They've invested heavily in an electronic health records system. And it's a big part of how they function day to day. But as new things arise or new technologies come across, especially from a standpoint of providing care or diagnosing equipment, things like that they might use to see a patient, the ability for that to integrate with their EHR or even using a service with us, we have to look at what we do and be very flexible to be able to integrate with somebody else's software that they use, because if we require them to only use what we have, then there's a good chance that we're not going to be able to do business with them. So, all right, moving right along. We're moving at a steady clip today. Some playoff action last night in the NBA. Couple big games. One series comes to an end. Another series has new life breathed into it. Unfortunately for the Golden State Warriors, they're going to be going home, not playing any more basketball this year in the playoffs. But congratulations to the Timberwolves for really putting it to them. I mean, a big part of it obviously was losing Steph. That hurt. But the Timberwolves are tough. They're tough. And then the Celtics pull out a big win in Game 5 against the Knicks at home in Boston. But now they're going to have to go back and try to extend it for another game, try to make it to a Game 7. Game 6 is going to be in New York. Celtics look tough. I looked through the highlights this morning of that game. They looked tough. They came out and played hard, even without Tatum,
Yeah, it was crazy. They won their games in at Madison Square too. That's a tough place to play. So yeah, that series is getting interesting, especially with Tatum out.
Yeah. I tell you what, they shot the lights out. I think they made 22 threes last night. That's hard to replicate day in and day out, especially in the playoffs, in a different environment where everybody's not cheering for you. So they were definitely shooting the lights out last night, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do that again. So we'll see. We will see a couple other interesting stories from around the world of sports. NFL schedule came out. That's cool. Did you take a peek at that yet, Matt?
I actually have not. No, I was just watching SportsCenter. I think I saw like the first Monday, Thursday night game, but I didn't really look at the schedule. I'm a Panthers fan, so I tend to shy away from looking at the schedule because we're not the best. But this year, you never know. But yeah.
Any given Sunday, right? Like,
yep.
You never know when, if I think a lot of the times, preseason means nothing. You could come out and go undefeated in the preseason and just be a terrible team because you're never really getting someone's best. But it's like the first 4 to 6 games in a season really says a lot. And sometimes teams turn it around if they don't have a good first quarter of the season, but you generally know what's happening in the first quarter.
Yep.
And then some other news. Looks like Matt Carpenter, 3-time MLB All-Star, long-time St. Louis Cardinal, is going to be hanging up the old cleats. He's retiring. So
Interesting.
Yeah, he just recently announced his retirement after 14 seasons. I took a quick look at his stat line. He's like a career 259 hitter or so. He's got about 1,600 total hits for his career. Great numbers, not like all-time great numbers, but maybe good enough to get him into the Hall of Fame at some point. I can remember like the first 3 or 4 seasons in his career, he was like the hottest thing, going on. Had a good career, got traded away a few years ago. I think he played a year in New York and then a year in San Diego, but St. Louis got him back on a year contract. I was looking at that today, and yeah, it looks like he's gonna hang him up. So,
nice. That's pretty cool. He got to retire a Cardinal too, because he started out as a Cardinal, and I know who was it, Albert Pujols got to do the same when that was a long time ago when the Cardinals traded him away and then they got back. So seems like the Cardinals, really they do a good job, because everyone that starts a Cardinal, they seem to want to finish out a Cardinal as well.
Yeah, and I like that too. I'm not a Cardinals fan. They're a rival of the Brewers and stuff, but I think they run their organization pretty well. I like to see that as well. Like from a business standpoint, if a player kind of runs his course and there's some value there and you can get something for it in a trade, so be it. That's the business of it. But recognizing that, hey, someone's ready to hang him up, let's bring him home for a year and let him do that in style, retire one of ours so that the legacy is here. And then, because it's smart when you think about it, when a team does that, because now what they can do is they can capitalize on that for the rest of time, right? So, you can down the road a couple of years later, you can bring them back for a couple special games and have a Carpenter bobblehead night again, and people are going to be fans. They're going to remember that, and you can still, have his jersey hung up and all the things that, because nostalgia is dollar signs in sports for sure. So that's cool.
100%.
That is cool. But yeah. So moving on into segment 4, I thought we'd spend a little bit more time here than normal and just cover some sales stuff today. So one of the things that I learned years ago when I started learning about IT sales is, I was given a book called Question-Based Selling, and from the folks that trained me years ago, they're like, learn this, know this, use this. And that's what I've done. And I've learned and used a lot of other things now. But a couple reasons I wanted to review this is I often forget to test what I'm doing from a sales standpoint in my process against these 5 prerequisites of a sale, because these are hugely important. Hitting these, checking these boxes before you ever go in to present your solution ultimately and try to close a deal is huge, because if you can check all these off the list that you've got them, you're most likely prepared to overcome any objections. You're prepared to be presenting the right solution that's going to solve their problems, and you will have the right people at the table that can write a check. So I figured let's go over these relatively quickly today, briefly chat about them, and maybe what we'll do moving forward every once in a while is visit one of them and just kind of build on the knowledge of technique and the art and the science of accomplishing each one of these prerequisites. So, first one being trust. Super important when you're working with a new sales opportunity to establish a degree of trust. Would you agree, Matt?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like one of the first things you got to do, because I mean, if no one's gonna, to get that trust, especially they got to trust that you can do what you can actually do as well. So just getting that trust that they believe you are, I know you're like me. I like to avoid the word expert a lot, but in this case, have them trust that you're the expert in this arena. I think is super, probably the one of, if not the first thing you should focus on.
So give me a couple examples of some things that you do, Matt, to, really quickly as possible, establish trust with a prospect.
Yeah, so one thing I like to do is just kind of ask what like for us as the viewers probably know, we're a podcast media production company, so we work video, audio. And so the first thing I like to do is kind of run through like, hey, what are you using right now? Like say there's someone that's currently making some video content, say, hey, what are you using right now to shoot your content? And they'll say, oh, I'm using my 2018 Mac and we're using Zoom. And so one way I can establish trust and show that expertise right there is say, well, that's great. Well, have you ever thought about Riverside? Riverside, you use that because it records locally. Also, I recommend these 3 microphones and I'll put them in tiers for you. Also, there are these cameras that I recommend you get. And once we do this, we can turn that into content. And then the great thing about the long form content is we can chop that up into tons of other content. You can turn that into blogs on your website. You can cut that into clips for social media. You can put it anywhere in a newsletter as well. And so I think showing the technical expertise for us, saying, hey, here's some cameras to use, here's some mics to use, here's the software to use, giving that to them for free too, giving them that knowledge for free. And then also, saying, hey, and then once we do it, give them the creative expertise. Once we take care of that, hey, this is what you get out of the media. So I think especially with technical things, I think that really established trust, because with technical stuff, if people don't know it, they're like, wow, okay, I need this guy because they know how to set up all these things. So that's kind of the route I like to take, is technical and then creative trust, I guess.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. And what you're communicating with me there, Matt, is establishing credibility.
Yep.
Right. So through the fact that you're displaying, you have an understanding of what it takes to create good content, which is why they're talking with you in the first place. Right. So definitely establishing credibility. It goes a long way towards establishing trust. The other one that I would say is establishing rapport. Right.
Yep.
So you can build trust by, getting to a conversation and, finding some common ground, making a friend. That's kind of what I call it. Kind of the first step is you make a friend, right? So, and how do we make friends? Well, we ask questions and we show genuine interest in who it is we're meeting with. Like there's the proverbial, go into their office, look around, find things and ask questions about those things. And that's all great. You just got to be really careful that it's not super obvious that that's what you're doing, right? Like, oh, I see you have this kind of hat. You must be this, right? It's there. You have to have a little bit of subtlety when you do those things. So you might notice those things, but instead of just coming out right and saying, oh, I see you have an Orioles hat on. Dude, I love the Orioles. Well, I don't really, you know what I mean? Like, don't be fake. Understand the surroundings. Do a little bit of research if you're not going to be in the person's office. Find some things out about them, but find ways to work questions into your meeting that aren't directly related to those things, right? But are going to trigger something in their mind like, oh, this person might, like I've got experience doing this. I should mention this. And then so you can pull that out of them. You already know what that thing is, but they're going to freely give that to you, and you can be prepared to speak to that and find common ground. You don't have to. Here's what you definitely want to avoid with establishing rapport. And this is what I had to learn a long time ago, and I think I always struggle because we all have a little bit of ego inside of us and we want to overshare, is don't one-up people in meetings as a way of establishing common ground, because what that does is it makes people subconsciously feel like you're trying to mention that you're better than them or you've done everything that they've done. Like and people don't even know that they're doing this, and it's turning people off, I think. So if like we were in a meeting, Matt, and you were to say, I was like, how was your weekend? Oh, I went skiing, last weekend, and oh, where'd you go? You went to Vail. Okay, you went to Vail. I'm going to say something. Oh, I've been there. That's pretty cool, but I've also been to blah. That might be a level up from that. And we're thinking that we're impressing you, but you're thinking, what a jerk. Like,
Yeah.
do they think they're better than me or something because they can afford to go here, there, do this or that? It's saying like, oh, I traveled to so-and-so last year. Oh, that's a nice place. I traveled to so-and-so, right? And it's like, we think we're impressing them with our awesomeness and they're going to be attracted to that. But what we're really doing is pushing them away because we're one-upping them. Instead, what we need to do is, in a genuine way, fire ourselves up and get interested in that. Like, Matt, when you talk to me about skiing or snowboarding and the things that like you've been to and you've gone, because you've like done a lot more than I ever have, but I really like that sport, especially when I was younger. I get interested to hear about how cool those things are. So I ask about those things. And then the more I do that, the more interesting you find me because I'm interested in something that you know things about, and then so that's a really good way to make a friend is to be interested in them in a genuine way and get them talking about themselves.
Yep. And building them up too. I think when you think of a friend, right? And like you said very important at the beginning, building rapport is, you're making a friend. And what do friends do? They build each other up. They like hearing about them. They like helping them. So like, think of it like a friend, I think is a really good thing where almost give. Don't expect really much in return. Just give. Try to build that friend and that relationship. And if you do that properly, the money and the business will come, is my belief.
Yep. For sure. Hey, Manoj, real quick, there's a pop-up that popped up right over Matt's face on the Zoom feed for me. Can you? Yeah, thanks, bud. Appreciate that. I was just looking at a pop-up window. Excellent. So credibility, rapport, fantastic. The next one is finding a need, establishing a need. So tell me some things, Matt, that you do in your normal everyday process in order to kind of extract the need that a prospect has.
Yeah. One thing I like to do is I like to understand, usually we're talking to owners of the company or executives, excuse me. And so one thing I like to do is I really like to ask about the vision of their company and see, okay, excuse me, the burps are coming up this morning, and just talk about, hey, what's the vision of your company? Where are you planning on taking this thing? And what are you doing right now to do that? And so I kind of understand, okay, Panacea, they'd like to grow to, 500 headcount. They'd like to close, 5 million revenue by the end of this quarter, XYZ. And I'm like, okay, great. What are you doing to get there right now? And they'll say X, Y, Z, yada, yada. And then I'll find little areas that they could use to get to that goal and say, hey, I think that X, Y, and Z could probably be a good goal. Not all of these would probably work for you, but what do you think about any of these and get their thoughts? And usually when I lay those out, it's like podcast, video, or like animated video. Yeah. And so then I get them to kind of choose like, oh, that sounds good. And so then I understand their goal. I understand the kind of media they like. And then I'm like, okay, if we're able to run with this, what does success look like to you? What is success in your eyes? What is going to be successful if we do this? And that's the question that really works is like, you get out of them, if this video that you're doing blows the water out of there, what is that success? Is it you get more demos? Is it you get more people ringing your phone? And so that's what I like to do is say, okay, pretty much a step of threes. What's your goal? What media excites you? And if this media was successful, what does that look like to you?
All good stuff. The only thing I would add to that, I think you did a really good job talking about kind of unpacking. You're finding those things that they want to solve and then focusing on the result that they're looking for. So you guys can be on the same page of what you guys are going for. Another thing you pointed out is understanding what they're doing to trying to get that right now that may not be working, which is why they're talking to you, right? So you wouldn't suggest doing those same things. If they're doing those, you're going to find the other things, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'm not just saying, hey, and the thing too is I come to them in a very transparent way and say, hey, there are these three things. All three of these I personally think could work for you. If you want to do all three, great. You don't have to. What excites you the most? And so kind of showing them all we do, not saying, hey, let's do all of this, but kind of I think giving the prospect more choices also like works out. It makes them feel like they're in control, which I think is good. And I mean, essentially they are in control. They're the one paying you, so they want it done right.
Cool. So here's what I would add to that. So let's just go back through a scenario that we were talking about the other day, Matt. You were talking about you're putting a lot of time and effort and trying to find a partner that can help you improve your email campaigns, right? To try to get more leads and opportunities via email or even brand awareness or whatever that is, right? So
Right.
if you came to me and I was to say, okay, Matt, tell me about what you're struggling with. And you say, well, I really am looking to, to really boost my email campaigns and get better results. Okay, really? Why is that? That would be kind of my next thing to ask. Oh, really? So you want to improve your email campaigns? Why? And so give me a reason why to, you want to improve those things.
Yeah, just get more prospects in the funnel.
So okay, so your reason for, I want to make sure I have this right. You need to get more prospects at the top of the funnel, right? Yep. Okay, so exactly. What's going to happen, Matt, if we don't start getting more prospects in the top of your sales funnel?
Yeah, I'm not going to be very happy. That's the goal.
Yeah. So what you're saying is more prospects at the top funnel is going to lead to more sales at the end, business growth, happy Matt.
Yep, exactly.
Right. So what I did there through questions is took the surface level need, which is better email campaigns, and tied it to emotional need, which is happiness and business growth, more money in your pocket. Right.
I like that a lot.
Right. It's like finding the need. A lot of the times what we do, and I'm guilty of this because sometimes I get that need and I'm excited, I'm ready to move on, or there's other things going on, I'm not focused on what I'm supposed to be doing right there or paying attention to that prerequisite, is that finding a need. The need isn't always the first stated thing that they're looking for. The need isn't necessarily the email campaigns. The need is happiness, more money in your pocket, business growth, and success, right? That's the true need. So now I've made your logical connection is logically, if you improve your email campaigns, you're going to get more prospects. You can work those prospects, get them down, turn them into, sales, turn them into growth. But your need is emotional connection to, if I need more success, more revenue, I'm going to be happier, those kind of things. We could even take, if we really were friends by now, I would say, what's happiness look like to you, man? What's your goal? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to build a house. Yeah. I'm trying to get my wife a wedding ring. I'm trying to buy a dog. I'm trying to free up time so I can travel the world, whatever. Now we got a real emotional connection, because later on, when we get to the point when I'm presenting to you the solution that I think is going to get you there, and I tell you the price, and you're like, oh, I don't know. I can connect it to, well, Matt, if we don't solve this problem, what you told me a while ago is, if you don't get more prospects in the funnel, which we both agree that this could probably do it, then, how are you going to get that new house? You're like, oh, damn it, Brian, you got me. Right?
Yeah.
Now, you might not say that, but that's really it. Like, and obviously this is a really in-your-face kind of example, down and dirty, but that's finding that need. The need isn't always what someone says to you right there. It's even in friendships and relations. What's wrong? Well, I'm tired. Well, that's not really the problem. Why are you tired? Well, I'm staying up too late. Okay, why are you staying up so late? Right? You can dig down and find the real thing that needs to be solved. Right?
Definitely. I like that a lot.
Cool.
That's really good.
Cool. All right, number 3, value. So, yeah, you have to demonstrate, and you've talked about this a little bit in your need finding section. You got to demonstrate how your solution provides tangible benefits and ROI to them, right? So some of this can come out in your, in your discovery process or an in-between. A lot of this is going to come out when you're presenting, but you need to make sure that you can connect your value to their needs as, a real solution. So And this is where it comes down to when you're doing a discovery process and you're finding out what their problems are, ultimately what their needs are and the emotional connections to those. Do you really have something that's going to solve that? If you do, then proceed by all means. If you don't, got to be okay with saying this might not be a fit. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, the way I typically do this in that first discovery meeting is I'm listening. I'm asking questions. I'm trying to get out some of that emotion. I'm trying to make a connection, make a friend. If I check those boxes, I feel like I've got a friend here. We're laughing, we're smiling, we're not closed off with our arms, crossed, and the person I'm meeting with is engaged. We're establishing a need. At the end of that discovery process, if those things add up, and I'll never say at the end that I think we can help you if they don't add up, right? We're pretty versatile company, so a lot of the times I've already kind of worked out a way in my head that I think we can have a solution. But if their realities don't meet what I can do, and then I won't move forward. I'll typically say, hey, everything, Matt, that I'm hearing honestly sounds like it's a really good fit for what we do. Typically what the next step is we do this, this, and this. Are you feeling the same way? Should we set up these next steps?
Yep.
And that goes there. If I'm getting certain kind of signals leading up to that point of the meeting that say they don't have or like to spend money at all, I'll just throw it out there. I might say, hey, from this conversation has been great. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. It sounds like you guys are a really good fit for what we do. The one thing I wanted to let you know, though, a service like this might end up costing about $2,000 a month. Is that something that you're prepared for? Or is that a deal breaker for you? If they tell me there's no, and it's the opportunity. It's the 500-pound gorilla. It's the elephant in the room. I can't give them a full quote on services, but I said this might end up costing somewhere, in the range of a couple grand a month. Is that something that you're prepared for? And if they say there's no way I could ever get there, and then I say, well, it's probably not going to be a good fit for you. We could offer A, B, or C, but ultimately what you're saying, what you want, and what it costs to deliver those things, there's a mismatch there, right? So what I don't want to do is take them through another 2.5 week process of getting to them to the point of presenting, and then they've just been kicking the tires, wasting their time and our time the whole time. So.
Yep. And you don't want to waste time, because time is one of the most valuable things too. So if you can find it's not going to be a fit sooner rather than later, that's also, although you didn't close the business, that's still a positive because you're not wasting time.
Yeah. And another way, you might not be demonstrating your value to them yet, but understanding if you've gotten the previous things, you can take what the features and benefits that you haven't even communicated to them yet, because you don't want to do that up front. You can take those and you can equate those to value. So in the IT world, one way we do that is I want to find out if there's been things that have happened leading up to this point that cost them money that they don't even realize they're spending on IT. Because usually when I sit down with somebody, they think all they're spending on IT is what they're paying their IT company every once in a while that they have to do work or whatever their monthly service agreement is or something like that. But what they don't always equate to spending on IT is, their slow network or their slow computers or whatever those things might be, slowing down their production. Maybe having to reboot, your computer 2 times a day, that's costing an employee 30 minutes of their time every day. Or when their computer locks up, Manoj, because the storage is too full, or the computer isn't functioning well, or it's getting old, how much time is that wasting that employee a day? We're still paying that employee, but during those times, the employee's not productive. That's probably one of the most common things that I'll find is just wasted employee time dealing with computer issues. So if you've got an MSP that isn't responsive to fix issues or proactive to keep them from happening in the first place, not only are you paying that MSP hundreds or a couple $1,000s a month to do a bad job, you're also paying your employee to do nothing throughout the day for whatever minutes, which is lost expense as well impossible revenue if that employee's job is to produce things that produce revenue. So if we've got 50 employees and 20 of them have to reboot their computer at least once a day, and they're not doing anything for 30 minutes because they go do this, that, or the other thing while everything updates and reboots, then you're paying those employees $20 an hour. I can make a real truth statement as to money that you're spending that you don't realize that you're spending. When it comes down to the end of the day, when I say this is going to cost a couple grand a month, and you say, well, I'm not spending anywhere near that. If I'm prepared to say, well, let's look at that real quick. In the last 3 months, after talking to a few of your employees at the network assessment, I've calculated a conservative estimate that you're paying them for non-productive time because the computers are terrible. So I'll say it in a nicer way, and I'll make it to where it's not really their fault, but that's how you can demonstrate real value. Your company is losing $100,000 every year due to this, this, and this, and this, and you didn't even realize it. We can fix that. So the $50,000 you might pay us this year for services is going to get you back that $100,000 that you were wasting. So I don't know how you can't afford to buy our services. That's how we do that. Cool. All right, number 4, urgency. We have to either create or find the urgency to make a timely decision. So sometimes it can be manufactured. Sometimes it has to be found. That there's an urgency. Sometimes it's just there and you have to just uncover it. But if you don't ask the questions from a timing standpoint, then you get to the presentation or you deliver your quote or your proposal, and they don't feel any urgency to make a decision, right? So what are some ways, Matt, that you've created urgency when it comes to getting new clients?
Yeah, so I do 2 things. The first thing I do, which is more of a sales tactic and just to ensure that we're not just leaving out to the dust, is I never get off that call until I booked our other meeting, our follow-up meeting. So never get off the call until I booked that other meeting relatively within a week.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I do is I do the 3 meeting rule. So usually that first meeting is introduction. Second might be overviewing. Third, after the third, my hope is I've sent a proposal. If we do get on a 4th meeting, I kind of start out the meeting by saying, hey, Brian, we've had a few calls here. We've gone over your goals. You have our pricing. You've seen our testimonials, XYZ. Can we both agree that the goal for this meeting today, whether or not you work with us, but the goal for this meeting today will be to make a decision. So that's what I do is that 4th meeting, because I try my best never to get to that 5th meeting, because after then you're just churning and burning.
Yeah.
It's just saying, hey, Brian, we've discussed all these things. Let's make a deal to ourselves that after this call, we'll make a decision. And so that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I like both of those. So one of the things you talked about is book a meeting from a meeting. Right? Yep. So if you get off a meeting without booking another one, if you don't have some closure, then it's really hard to get back on a calendar, right?
Yep.
And the other one you talked about is, agree up front that you guys are going to make a decision by the end of this one. We're going to have a next course of action. Yeah, I think both of those are really, really good. There's a couple ways I use both of those tactics. Definitely book a meeting from a meeting. I could definitely do a better job of upfront saying, hey, let's just agree by the end of this, you're going to give me a yes or a no. Mm-hmm. The other things that I do, in the process leading up to the actual, quote or proposal or presentation is try to uncover, what the urgency is, right? Just so, when are you planning on making a decision? When do you need to have this problem solved by? Sometimes you find out right away that, hey, we're just kind of kicking the tires on this. We're looking at a couple different, providers. And when we hear from everybody, that's when we're going to make a decision. Or we're looking now because we've got a contract that expires in 6 months, or any number of things. But without that knowledge, whatever it is, and if you just kind of plow through with what your process is and you get to the end and you haven't found that out, you're expecting a yes or a no. And they're like, dude, we're not planning on deciding until January. We just wanted to get some pricing and, blah, blah, blah. So it's really important to find out, okay, these are you've uncovered, you've got the trust, you've got the need, and you've shown the value. How do you got to ask them when they're looking to get this thing solved, right?
Yep.
And if it's really pushed out, you can talk to them a little bit about, well, what if there was a way to solve it sooner? What would be, would it be a bad idea, since you're bleeding, $3,000 a month because of lost employee time, to solve this sooner rather than later? And no, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Okay, so what's stopping you guys from, making the change in September instead of January? Well, we've got a contract we can't get out of, or we've got an employee that, there could be any number of reasons, and we could work through those things. But whether it's can make the deal now or it can make it later, that now we can be prepared and realistic and project when that thing's going to come in,
Yep.
So that's another one. And another thing that I typically like to do is incentivize the deal to some degree that makes it really hard to say no. Right. So, be willing to create the deal in a way that you can add additional value for them and make it easier for them to say yes by augmenting something. Sometimes that might be, well, this amount a month per month is about $500 a month more than what we were thinking we were going to be able to pay. We haven't budgeted for that. Okay, what could I do in order to not lose any money on the deal and make them feel like they've saved face? Well, I could extend the term of the agreement from 3 years to 5 years, and then bring the monthly down a little bit, and still over the course of a 5-year deal make more money than I would in a 3-year deal, right? And where normally they might not be willing to sign a 5-year deal because that's a long time, that's a long relationship in business. But in order to meet their budget and get everything they're looking for at that price, they might be more willing to do that. Another thing would be to discount or remove any sort of onboarding fees. Onboarding fees are good. They pad revenue, but they also, no matter how happy a client is to come on board with you, it pisses them off. Nobody likes to buy it. Nobody likes to pay an onboarding fee. They just don't. It's like I'm paying. It's like when you buy a car and that silly administrative fee on the front end. That's the first thing you try to get them to remove. You know what I mean? Because it's just cleanup money. It's just some way to try to get some money up front that, isn't. It's nice definitely for revenue, but it isn't necessarily, what needs to be there. So, last one is authority. Ensuring you're engaging with the decision makers who have the power to act. That's a big one, and that can be a tough one because sometimes the person who finds you or engages with you is just the person that's been tasked with, looking for the right service, right? What do you do in those cases, Matt?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit luckier in the fact that I mainly talk to with the businesses we talk to is usually the owners or decision makers. I really honestly haven't come into too much where we're talking to any other than the decision maker. Usually right when we get on, because it's media or because it's things like that, usually it's the decision maker that wants to do this so they can bring to their team this new thing.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit different in that because I think it has to do with media. So they already know who wants to be talking about this stuff. You don't really have any gatekeepers or things like that. But so I really haven't run into that too much, to be completely honest with you.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I've found the larger the opportunity, the more often there's an in-between person that's searching.
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger the company, like the either department heads or the ownership or the leadership team will task someone else, an office manager or something like that, with Google this, find 3, talk to them, get a quote, and then show us the quote. You know what I mean? That's kind of the ideal scenario for those guys is they don't have to talk to anybody. They can offload the responsibility onto somebody else. It
is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying it is interesting with, I guess, what I've seen with us, and we've talked about this previously, is, we're talking to the decision maker, but it's interesting because what I found within us and the things we do is they'll bring it back to their team. And if their team isn't on board, they won't really go through with it, like their marketing team. And so that's where we get wrapped up is marketing teams don't necessarily love us because what we're doing is we're coming in and saying is, hey, we can make this better.
You
and
guys
so
suck.
that makes them, yeah. So that makes the marketing team be like, I don't like these guys. I don't want them touching my stuff, which is completely understandable. And I don't blame them at all. But I'd say that's what we run into is we're lucky in the fact that we're usually talking to the decision makers, but those decision makers, because of the work we do, are so heavily influenced by that marketing team, I feel. So that is something that we run into when we're talking to new prospects is that's where we're going. And that recently happened with a prospect we were just going after the other day, and their marketing team was like, no. So that's what I see in us.
Interesting. So you're having kind of the top level execs come to you before they've even talked to their team. They're just seeing an issue that's not going very well, that their team's not doing very well, coming to you, and then you've got to sell yourself to the team. Right?
Exactly. And so that's what I've tried to start implementing more is getting their team members in the call with us, saying like after the first call, say, hey, they're usually like, hey, we're going to go talk to our team about this, yada, yada. And I'm like, great, set up the next meeting. Hey, by the way, if you want to bring any of those people on the call, I would love that. I'd love to talk to them, do all that, because then once they're able to get on a call with me and I can talk to them and just say, hey, we're not trying to take over all your stuff. We're just trying to do X, Y, and Z. That seems to help. A lot of the times they don't get on the call is what I found, but that's what I've recently tried to do is like say, hey, go talk to your team after you have a proposal, come back on the call with some of the team members. Let's talk all together and brainstorm.
Yeah. And I think the moral of the story is whether it's what you see happening or whether what I've seen happen a lot. Cause I think different industries come across different things, but the moral is finding out who all is involved in having authority on getting the win, right? So if it's one person at the top that writes the check and that there's never, no matter how much the team or whoever else likes you, if they don't say yes, then you don't get the win, right? And that typically falls down to the price versus, the ROI. And then, but it definitely, we see it to where that's an objection that's going to come up. The way we overcome the objection is getting all those people to the table for the final presentation, meeting them on a one-on-one basis during the assessment period. So it sounds like you're trying to do that too. Sometimes that can be challenging from a remote standpoint because you're not going to their office and meeting one-on-one. But it's, what I found works really well is if you get everybody into one meeting and you've got 5 people into a call in the assessment or discovery phase, there's groupthink. Everybody gets kind of protective and they'll band together to repel your advance, right?
Exactly.
But if you can, and this happens in in-person meetings because people are so used to, and I think they hate it, but they're so used to, all right, let's just pull everybody away from their work for an hour-long meeting. That's how we get stuff done. And what I'll say is I want to meet with at least one kind of rep from different departments. I want to meet your department heads and some of your frontline staff and find out what their experience with their IT, network, software, and support has been. And they're like, well, you want me to just bring everybody into a meeting and then we could talk to them together? I'm like, no, because what happens is now I've got to use an hour to an hour and a half of everybody's time. And they've all got to kind of sit there and listen to each other talk while they're doing nothing. Right. But so the way we like to do it is when we come in for the assessment, the technician is going to go play with the computers. And then I'm just going to either go to someone's desk for 5 or 10 minutes and just chat with them. Or, they can walk over in the conference room and we can just chat real quick and I'll let them go. That way you're not ruining their day by having to sit down with me for an hour. And they're just like, oh, that makes sense. That usually makes sense. And now, because if you can meet with them one-on-one, you can get down and dirty. You can be like, you can be honest. Hey, like the only reason we're here, bud, is because so-and-so, the head honcho, isn't seeing what they're seeing. So why do you feel What do you feel could be better with A, B, and C that could make results better? Well, if we have better communication, we have better this, we have better tools, we have this. And you're like, dude, I can give you all that stuff. Working with us, we'll give you that stuff. We'll empower you. All those things that you don't want to be doing, that you think's a time waster, give those to us. And then you can have that, right? So you can figure out, again, how to add value to that person. And then in the presentation, you have them all in the presentation. And then every slide or everything you're talking about, oh, and when I met with so-and-so, they told me A, B, C, and D. Well, here's how that's going to get solved. That's never happening again. Boom, boom, boom. Now they got a big smile on their face. And then, everything that you're addressing, and the problem is making all the people involved in the decision happy. And then they all look at each other and say, why would they say no? Let's do this. So.
Yep.
Anyway, that was fun. Sales
masterclass right there.
That's right. And we didn't get too deep into it, but deep enough for sure. So the 5 prerequisites of a sale: number 5, authority; number 4, urgency; 3, value; 2, need; number 1, trust. If you get all these and you figure all this stuff out before you get to a point where you're trying to close a deal, the chances of you being able to close that deal will go up astronomically. Guaranteed. Well, that's all I've got today. Matt, you have anything else? Are you good to go?
Nope, that is it. I will be out on tomorrow's show, so everyone out there have a great weekend is all I got to say.
Hey, travel safe, bud. Enjoy some baseball this weekend. Get them off the schneid and win in some games.
Yeah.
Turn them around. All right. We need it. To everybody out there, thanks again for tuning in to episode 37 of the Daily BLP. Hope everybody has a great day. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.